Hi. Oh, we've started. Fabulous. Hello, it's Phil. It's Discover Tai Chi for LimbPower. And we're off to the woods today, or maybe the local park. I know it's a little bit chilly, but at least we've hopefully all had a bit of sunshine. I'm going to start standing, but this applies to people who are seated as well. Let me take my glasses off. So, first of all, we're just going to either move in our seat very gently from side to side, or we're just going to move on our feet, be they prostheses or not, very softly. And I'd like you to take yourself into a bit of a woodland setting. I know that the leaves have almost all dropped now, but I still would like you to kind of have this sense of being in the woods. Obviously, we're all wrapped up and cozy, so we're not going to get cold. And then just come to a rest. And again, whether we're seated or standing, have this sense of being very connected with the earth, with the ground. Obviously, we've got our sense of weight, our mass acting upon the ground, gravity, and there's also that kind of emotional connection that we often get from visiting favourite places, like a place in a park or a place in a landscape. So let's have that sense. And then we're just going to start with Chisha. Very nice. But all the while, see if we can just keep most of our focus on that sensation that connects us with the ground. Our sense of balance heading downwards in relation to that contact as we just move the hands gently up and down. Could be a breath in followed by a breath out. But it's almost like a moving meditation. Fab. So let's open that movement out. I'm going to join people who are seated just for this next movement. So we're picking up and then opening hearts. So again, as I sit down, I'm keeping my focus on my connection with my seat, in this case, and its connection with the ground. So it gives me a very stable base of support from which to explore this movement with the hands and arms, which is simple, symmetrical, and gives us an opportunity, as a consequence of its simplicity and symmetry, to just get some headspace. All the while having a little bit of a vision or image of a woodland. Okay. Just a brief pause. Again, we can just relieve some pressure, standing or seated, by just shifting weight from one side to the other. Again, try and keep that sense of focus of, again, that connection with the ground, how we move from one side to the other, keeping our balance and stability. And then come to a rest again. And again, it's almost as if we grow roots through our seat or through our feet into the earth itself. This sense of rootedness is a really important and prominent principle, shall we say, in Tai Chi terms and even kind of Chinese philosophy, this sense of connection. So with that connection in mind, we lift up and overhead. Now, of course, whenever I suggest overhead movements, it's always with the proviso that you move as comfortably as you can within the range of motion that you have. So again, that may mean just about face height for some people, and that's okay. So once again, we've got an opportunity, if you feel like it, to take a breath in. And we get to look up to the blue sky as we do so. And as we bring the hands down, there's almost a sense that we can bring a little bit of that blue sky, that clarity, down to earth as we go. I'm going to do one more. Fab. And once again, just have a little side to side. Relieve some pressure. Okay, so rootedness, it's a key concept, a key idea, something to hold in mind. Again, maybe the proper word from the Chinese would be to hold in heart. That would perhaps be more accurate. This sense of connection. So let's carry on in a similar vein. We're going to do white dove spreads its wings. Again, it helps us maintain our position. If you feel comfortable, you can push a leg forward, maybe if you're seated with me, or if you're standing, a little bit of a pace in that direction with the right leg. May only be a little bit, that's okay. Even just a suggestion is okay. And then we spread our wings. Make sure those hands are low. If we lift the hands too high, it really makes the shoulders ache. And then we just close our wings like a wing beat. And then we open those wings. And then they close. And it doesn't take too much imagination to realize that we can take a breath in every time we open those wings. And take a breath out as we close, because there's a natural sense of expansion and contraction. Opening and closing. I'm going to do one more. And then just rest for a moment, because even with low hands, we begin to feel that in the upper arms and the shoulders, and we don't want it to become too onerous. Let me do the, shall we say, the left side, if we call it that, standing up. As I said, it may just be a little bit of a suggestion of a movement. So it could be just a little placement of that left foot. The same for people seated. Or it might be more of a pace. Again, you do you. Once again, we spread our wings. And then there's a gentle press forward as we close and a gentle shift back. So there's a little bit of weight shift going on. Even for those of us who are seated, we're just aiming to get a little bit of weight shift, not tremendously. We could almost think of ourselves as a tree in a breeze, gently moving. just a little bit of give and take, or sway as it's called. We'll do one more, just to finish. And then once again, we're just shifting weight, relieving pressure. It's almost as if we're exploring our environment. So we've got this sense of rootedness. Now, there's a lovely poetic concept that I heard many years ago. It was a Japanese program on Radio 4. It must have been 30 years ago when I came across this image and idea, but it's really stuck with me, and I've come across it in other veins as well. But there's this image of human beings being trees walking on the earth. And I kind of like that idea of trees walking on the earth. It gives us again that sense of connection physically and emotionally to the ground and the earth from which we all spring, and this sense of rootedness. And in many respects, our Qigong and Tai Chi movements represent different shapes of trees, we could call them. So we could explore that with a movement. For instance, we could do wave hands in clouds. If I come closer, we get our roots in the ground. I'm still standing at this point, so a little bit of a wider stance. If you sat down, again, this sense of rootedness. And then as soon as we bring the hands into our familiar wave hand shape of holding something, I've got my, which hand is that, Phil? Right hand on top. This, certainly from a kind of poetic point of view, would be, I've created a tree shape. And that tree gets to move, but all the while it's connected with the earth. So if I've got my right hand on top, I can have a gentle little shift, as if the wind blows me in that direction. And then I swap hands, get the left hand on top, and then there's a gentle breeze that blows me across to the other side. And in a very real way, we can begin to embody what I think, hopefully, you kind of like as well, this notion of human beings being trees walking on the earth. I hope that's kind of a nice image. Kind of helps us feel at home, hopefully, a little bit. So there I am, I'm just moving, so to speak, with that image in mind, that I'm just creating shapes, so to speak. And then we can come to a rest. It's almost as if the breeze dies down and everything comes to a rest. Again, if you've ever been in a woodland on a light, windy day, not a very windy day, again, you realize just how much movement is happening in the canopy. So let's create some more shapes. Let's do, what should we do? Let's do gazing at the moon, which I'll do seated. Let me rejoin people seated. It challenges our roots. It requires some rotation. So again, go steady and easily. We've got a bit of a full moon building in the sky at the moment, haven't we? I'm going to lift up to the right again. Everything is suggestive. You do you. Work within a comfortable range of motion. But I'm sweeping those hands up to gesture towards the moon. And then sweeping the hands down and gesturing up as if to look at the moon on the opposite side. And it's just that sway or swing all the while, keeping a sense of connection and stability with our roots in the earth. From one side and then to the other. And it's a real mobilizer as well, especially if you've spent a day in front of a computer, or maybe you've been driving, or you've just got tense. And this is a good stress buster. So I'm going to do one more to each side. And relax. So these shapes that we create with Tai Chi and Qigong, some of them are symmetrical, like opening the hands out and moving. Others are asymmetrical, like parting the wild horse's mane, where we have the hands going in opposite directions. So let's have a little explore of that. If we start off with our familiar motion and transition of holding a ball. So again, I'm going to get the right hand on top. So there it is, holding a ball. And again, as we know, whichever hand on top tells us that we're going to make a little bit of a turn. And then the hands just part ways. The top hand drops down, the bottom hand, here it comes, goes forward. And if I turn to the side, you can see I've just slid the hands past one another into that position or shape. And then I'm going to hold the ball again, only now we've swapped hand positions. And then once again, I can slide the bottom hand forward and the top hand down, and I'm creating this asymmetrical shape. It's a bit like a bonsai tree. You don't get perfectly symmetrical bonsai trees. In fact, it's the asymmetry from an Eastern perspective that is considered balanced and harmonious. And that's a nice kind of alternative to the formal symmetry of some ideas in European and Western concepts. So I'm just parting the wild horse's mane and finding that shape, that asymmetry, but it should feel balanced and stable on our roots as we do so. Let me go again on the other side. So there we are, we're embodying that idea of, could say, treeness, rootedness, but also just creating these interesting shapes. Using a Tai Chi movement. And then let's just let that melt away. And if we went to a woodland that had all the same species of tree, let's say an oak woodland, they're not all the same. They're all the same species, yes, but they all represent different tree shapes. They're all different. They've all got their own characteristics and personalities even, and some may be broken a little bit, broken branches and things like that, and that's what makes the woodland interesting, is that all of these trees express oakness, shall we say, but they're all different and unique. And again, maybe we can take something from that and really embrace our uniqueness in ourselves and recognize that, yeah, I'm a rather lovely tree. I know that's a funny way of putting it, but I hope you get the gist of what I mean, is that, yeah, I'm really embracing my uniqueness. Even though I exist within a world of lots of other human beings, I can only really be me and express my body in my way, regardless of whether it does the things that I would like it to do. I can still express. Let me stand up. I'm waxing on a bit, but I hope these images are nice images for us to kind of explore as well. So let's do another shape. It has some symmetry, but also a sense of asymmetry as well. It's our familiar wise owl motion where we make a turn, again seated or standing. I'm simply turning to the right, but as I do so, I gently lift the hands and arms and then slowly rotate back and then do the same to the opposite side. It's such a familiar and easy movement, we sometimes disregard it, but actually it's an opportunity to create a balanced shape with our hands and arms, even though we're rotating in opposite directions as we do so. And we all find that there's asymmetry there, most likely. I certainly don't have the same amount of rotation on this left turn as I do when I turn to the right, and that's just as a consequence of my treeness. It's a little bit broken on the right side, and that restricts my motion. And that's okay. I don't judge it. In fact, like an interesting tree in the woodlands, sometimes it's the tree that's most misshapen. Is it misshapen? It's probably not. It's just its own unique shape that catches our interest the most. Just like a bonsai tree is asymmetrical and catches our interest, but at the same time captures the idea of being harmonious and symmetrical in its own way. Okay, let's push some waves. Let me join people again, seated again. Nice and simple movement from one side to the other, but again, it sometimes reveals asymmetry in terms of how easy the motion happens. I'm going to go to my right again. I can shift my right foot forward a little bit or have a little emphasis in that direction, and then I push a wave off into the distance and withdraw the hands before pushing again. We can let the breath find its way into that movement if we feel like it. But at the same time, I'm still keeping a lot of my focus on my connection with my seat and with the ground. Therefore, just letting the movement kind of almost take care of itself. Again, a bit like a breeze blowing through the trees. I know we often use watery analogies. Here I'm being a bit more on terra firma. Same on the left. I can make a bit of an emphasis. It may just be a bit of a turn. It doesn't even have to be a significant shift or a push of a leg. It could just be a bit of a turn. And then once again, I'm pushing, lifting and returning in this steady ebb and flow of a rhythm. but again with that image of roots in the earth as we do so. Very simple. I'll do one more. Okay, so time has flown. I hope that's been interesting. Let's bring things to a close, and we'll just keep things very simple and within a nice range of motion. Just pushing the fingertips forward, maybe with a little lean, and then a drawing in. And then just let the hands drop before pushing forwards again, fingertips pushing forwards. Could be a breath in if you wish, followed by a breath out. And again, keeping that focus on connection and rootedness and balance, even though we're in motion. And on this last one, I can maybe just let the hands rest one on top of the other. I can link thumbs if I choose, but it's not necessary. And just rest, maybe spend my last moments in the woodland before heading home. Could take a breath and breathe in that kind of autumnal, wintry smell and fragrance. And I can pump my hands, and that signals the end. So there you go. I've given you some kind of poetic, metaphorical kind of ideas that have been inspired by kind of artistic ideas that I've picked up along the way from Japan as well as from China. I hope they've connected maybe and resonated with you. Let me stop the recording and bid you farewell. Although if you've got a question